Okay, pardon me. Almost forgetting the thing which makes the sound. How you doing? Sorry, that was a little bit well, it's very unprofessional of me. Greetings people. How you doing? Come on in. We had some early entries in the chat. Raza Remen, Maru, James Michael Campbell, Prudhomme. Prudhomme saying UK police thugs break up barbecues with violence. That's wild. I seem to hear different stories about, extreme measures being taken. Or there seems to be different stories out there about extreme quarantining measures, I guess, or social distancing measures. Somebody sent me a story from the Raconteur report about the National Guard going house to house in Rhode Island. They're trying to, they're insisting that people that have traveled from New York, they're demanding 14 days of self-quarantine. Is this true in Rhode Island? There actually is not a travel ban on people. There isn't a New York quarantine, so that has, that actually is not true. There's just a strong travel advisory right now. So there was talk of that, but I guess they've okay, so this is actually true in Rhode Island. I was trying to look this up before the stream started. Coronavirus updates. Let me see. Bobbity boo. Okay, where did the thing go? I really hate that when you click on a link and it takes you to just the front page of the website instead of taking you to the story that you wanted to look for. Come on, man. Okay, Rhode Island forces all travelers from other states into self-quarantine. All right. It's repealed its quarantine order that applied only to those who traveled from the state of New York, broadening it to apply to all out-of-state travelers. The day after New York Governor Andrew Cuomo threatened to sue. So instead of, pinpointing people from New York, they just went, well, everybody then. Okay, so there is some truth to this report. Rhode Island police began stopping cars with New York plates. On Saturday, the National Guard will help them conduct house-to-house searches to find people who traveled from New York. That's wild. Obviously, New York being the epicenter of the epidemic at the moment in the United States, that is. So yeah, different places are taking different tactics. They have closed all the beaches in California and closed the state parks, and they've tried to close trails to keep free, because a really popular thing to do after all this, for the last couple of weeks after all this started happening, all of the hiking trails and the outdoor naturey trails were packed, absolutely packed. So there was a lot of people going, well, we'll go over here then. If we can't go, out to lunch or out to a bar or out to dinner, we'll go hiking. So seems to be, um, the virus is ramping up. Obviously, in the United States, we are the leader in cases. Although we still have a low mortality rate. The death to case rate is still quite low. Um, we're at 708,000 cases worldwide. So we're quickly approaching a million cases worldwide. 33,000 deaths, 150,000 recovered. Again, the in the closed cases column, the death rate to recovered rate is 18%. So, where they get this like 1% or 2% death rate from, I think they're, deaths to all cases divided by, or deaths divided by all cases, whatever it is. Sorry, math brain not working right now, but you know what I'm saying. Um, but we have, so far, 9,000 new cases today. That's a lot of cases. 130,000 cases overall. And yet only 2,000 deaths total. 143 new deaths reported. So we are closing in. I mean, Spain and Italy have blown past China as far as their death toll. And they're still climbing. They're not climbing in cases, but they're holding steady on a daily case. About 5,000 new cases a day. We've gone up to close to 10,000 new cases. And yet the death rates in Spain and Italy are quite a bit higher than the U.S. Or China or other places. South Korea is going down. China has been going down. Holding steady at like South Korea is holding steady at about 100 new cases a day. Total deaths 152, very, very low, very low. Death rate to case rate. Netherlands going up, Belgium going up. Looks like Switzerland seems to have a high death to case rate. I don't know why Switzerland. Maybe because they're close to Italy. I'm assuming that's why. Iran seems to be going down a little bit in their cases, but holding around 3,000 new cases. And France also holding at around 3,000 new cases. So Germany, again, very low death to case rate. So yeah, that's just an overview. Henry Holt also sent me a very interesting video done by a channel called Peerless Reads. I don't know who this gentleman is. If I missed his missed his credentials in the beginning, I don't know. But basically going over the facts, fact not fear. So going over the facts, the numbers of the cases. Again, if you think that I'm not trying to focus, like when I'm focusing on the facts of the numbers and the reality of where we are on an actual like danger scale from this virus, like I'm not downplaying the severity of the disease. That's not what I'm trying to do. But what I'm trying to do is perhaps provide a little bit of balance to the whole, because we seriously run a danger of getting ourselves into deeper trouble. Like again, when people are panicking and buying all the stuff, buying everything out of the stores, leaving very little for others, you create a dangerous situation for other people and eventually yourself when you're like stockpiling stuff. Then you create a situation where you do create shortages that weren't necessarily there before. Again, also if the level of panic and hysteria around the disease creates a situation where the people in power see it as an opportunity to um, amass more power. Then that's, you know, obviously I don't know if I need to say that it's not good. So, and it another thing that this gentleman talks about in this video is that, there's not necessarily a proof that a complete total lockdown, a China style, Wuhan style lockdown is really necessary in order to combat the disease. The disease is, plateauing in many countries, not necessarily gone, not eradicated, not, going down in some countries, but, definitely like plateauing. Not going, not doing the exponential thing. In other countries, it's doing the exponential thing, but not everywhere. So you really have to like look at the entire picture, I think, to understand the actual implications of the disease and understand that there's a difference between taking this sickness seriously, and doing everything that you can to protect yourself and your family and your loved ones, from it, or protect your country from, having your hospital system overrun, or, et cetera, et cetera. But then there's also, I think that we need to protect ourselves from having our civil liberties impinged upon, our civil rights impinged upon, and our, financial well-being, our financial futures, and, the ability to, continue to live in a, semi-free society, um, in order to not, walk ourselves into a place where we're okay with total lockdowns and martial law, and, um, uh, all kinds of other indignities that, actually breach the law of, free speech, or, freedom to move around, or freedom to live, et cetera. Um, and as we were talking yesterday about what it is that we can do to continue to, resist, or revolt, or strike, or boycott, right now our abilities to do any of these things is very limited. So this is good for the powers that be. This situation is very good for the powers that be. Very good for the people who are in control. Um, Very bad for people who would like to protest or speak out, or, say, hey, we don't really necessarily like this thing. So, be worried, be afraid, be upset, you know, but then, maybe temper that panic, or that rush to panic, with the idea that we need to really keep our eyes open at this moment in order to see, what it is that's being kind of rammed down our throats economically, and, um, eventually possibly militaristically. Um, so I'm going to link this video. It's called, you know, CV-19 Fact and Not Fear. It's interesting. Just listen to it. It's just numbers, and we can all be like, oh, they're all lying. Everything's wrong. It's all wrong. Everything's wrong. We can do that, of course. And I wouldn't be mad at you for doing that. I wouldn't, I wouldn't deny your right to question, what the official narrative is. But what this person is saying, and I think what other people are trying to say to you, is like, maybe you want to question, the hype or the panic narrative that might be, forcing other things upon us that we do not want, i.e., the stimulus package that just got passed in Congress, the rescue bill, or whatever you want to call it. Very bad for regular people, very good for those in power. Um, so let me get into what I wanted to talk about a little bit today. Um, Also, really quickly, I don't necessarily want to do this too often, but I am, as many people are, running up against the first of the month and some bills. If you guys feel it in your hearts, if you could drop $1 or two in my PayPal, that would be, any help whatsoever would be so very appreciated. Um, so the sea ice in the Arctic, as we have been covering as best we can, um, got a little bit of a bump up because of a cold, because of a cold winter. Um, the polar air seemed to stay uh, up in the polar region this winter. Not nearly as much of a polar vortex or the leaking of the cold air out of the Arctic as as we've been used to over the last couple of years. However, um, I mean, we've been kind of crossing the line under and over the like the 2011 2012 median. We are, we are seriously low at this date in time. We are well below all of the medians. um, this doesn't actually show where we are as in comparison to last year. Here, maybe we can see this, or you can't see it, but I can see it. Where are we now? Yeah. Uh, well, under the 2012 record minimum, they have a line for that, and we are pretty low. We're well below that line. In 2012, we were at this date around 15 million kilometers. We are now at 14, 14 and a half million kilometers, excuse me. March 26, March 26, March 26, over 15 million kilometers. Uh, I don't know if they're, where are we? We are about where we were in 2019. 2018 was actually lower than where we are now. 2017 was lower than so we're above what the last few years were. Um, about the same as 2015, below 2014, below 2013, and below 2012. But the last few years, 17, 18, 19, we've had less. We're about where we are in 2019, but we've had less the last couple of years. All in all, not a good look for sea ice. If you combine that with the fact that we have a large ozone hole formed over the Arctic, which will allow those UV rays to come on in and melt, do some melting. A rare and record ozone hole has formed over the Arctic. An opening in the ozone layer appears each spring over the Antarctic, but the last time this phenomenon was seen in the north was in 2011. So there's generally a large ozone hole over the Antarctic, and sometimes it kind of like drifts over. Sometimes it drifts over, drifts out of the Antarctic and over, South America, Australia, New Zealand. Um, but it's a fairly, regular feature in Antarctica that there is a large ozone hole. Um, the Arctic, not so much. The Arctic has um, fared a little better as far as escaping this situation. This set of circumstances. Um, they keep touting. There's in this article they ask, is it dangerous? Things would have been much worse this year if nations had not come together in 1987 to pass the Montreal Protocol. Yes, indeed, things would have been much worse. Not saying that they are much better, um, or not all the way better. So they're not great. the international treaty that phases out the use of ozone-depleting chemicals, says Paul Newman. Paul Newman, an atmospheric scientist at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland. The Antarctic ozone hole is now on its way to recovery. I keep hearing this. Last year's hole was the smallest on record. That's good news, but it will take decades for the chemicals to completely disappear from the atmosphere. The Arctic ozone hole isn't a health threat because the sun is just starting to rise above the horizon in high latitudes, says Rex. Who's Rex? We don't know. In the coming weeks, there is a small chance the hole might drift to lower latitudes over more populated areas, in which case people might need to apply sunscreen to avoid sunburn. It wouldn't be difficult to deal with. Okay. So, nothing to see here, not a big deal. The next few weeks are crucial. This is the important part. With the sun slowly getting higher, atmospheric temperatures in the region of the ozone hole have already started to increase, says Aunt J. Innes, an atmospheric scientist with the European Center for Medium-Range Weather Forecasts in Reading, UK. Ozone could start to recover as the polar vortex breaks apart in the coming weeks. So there you go. With this massive ozone hole, there might be added warming in the area. We'll see. Not sure what this means. One other thing I wanted to look at while we were talking about this. Somebody sent me a screenshot saying that the Mauna Loa CO2 measurement was offline. I don't know if that is true still. Let me see if they have an actual today's CO2. Let's see. Hello, birds. The birds are back. Kind of was missing the birds all through last year. There was not as much bird noise, but now there's a lot. Today, so we do have a measurement for today. We're at 415 parts per million. Last year on this date, we're at 415.89. We're almost 416. Last year we were at 411.94, almost 412. So we have gained four. As of today. Let's see. I think that is about what I wanted to cover in today's video. I had one more thing. Hold on, where did it go? I can't seem to find it. If you guys can, please remember to like the video. Make sure that you're still subscribed. Again, I keep seeing stories about the easing of environmental restrictions because of this virus situation. This is the thing that we need to be vigilant against, is the fact that this whole scenario has made it hard for people to be aware of what's going on as far as the Trump administration or the government at large, just kind of doing whatever it is they want to do. Environmental regulations have been relaxed. And so could turn into a little bit of a free for all while we can. The enforcement of environmental regulations has been, suspended at the moment. So, all the again, big business getting a big break, right? Oh, guys, you don't have to worry about it. We're not going to fine you. We're not going to fine you. We're not going to take you to task. We're not going to take you to court. We're not going to cite you. This is the kind of thing that's very difficult to guard against, because they've got us in a position where we cannot, we can't raise our voices enough. We can't be heard. They're like, well, hold on. We're trying to deal with this situation. We're in an emergency. We don't want to hear about this environmental stuff. We don't want to hear from your goofy hippies that want to worry about the environment. And we can't really get out in the street and block traffic. You can't really get out in the street. You can't really, there's nothing to boycott because we're already kind of, we're boycotting everything anyways. So we can't really do any more damage than is being done to the economy or to certain companies. Again, I'm at a loss as to how to get the message out, or how to actually, possibly, shift a lever, put some weight on a lever of power to try and get people to, recognize that. I mean, it hasn't really been very successful in the Trump administration anyways. We've had a serious uptick in the recognition that the climate is a problem, and we've had a serious, an extreme increase in protests, awareness around climate change just in the last few years. I actually think that some of that is actually due to Trump, because during the Obama administration, people were like, yeah, climate, yeah, it's cool. But, Obama's in office, so whatever. But with Trump in office, people are like, oh shit, look what he's doing. This is terrible. This is horrible. It's actually kind of again, in a paradoxical way, helping to raise awareness and helping to raise people's, anger around the climate situation. But now with this, it's very, very difficult to rally that emotion around this. It's kind of up to us to keep the candle burning and to think of new ways to put pressure on people to recognize that this is a topmost problem. Got a couple of super chats. Thank you, Basil Peterson. Saving a little, sitting home, planting peas, and dreaming of eating lots of peaches. Namaste, brother. Thank you, Basil. I appreciate you. Another super chat from Trish. Thank you, Kevin and community. Much love. Thank you so much, Trish. I appreciate you. Rosa Remen, Kevin, I owe you $10. All right, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Richard Monroe, degrowth. Well, we're degrowing right now. So, in a way, if we were looking at this in like a I don't know if you would call this kung fu or tai chi, or there's an Asian martial arts tradition where you use the momentum of somebody to take them down to the momentum of your opponent to take them down, right? So I don't know enough about it to speak like with great depth, but you know what I'm saying. So there's this there's a practice in which you use your opponent's momentum to take them down. So we have this momentum of shutting all business down and shutting society down in some ways that is making us a little uncomfortable, but is very, very good for the environment. Obviously, the biosphere is smiling and running through the fields and kicking her heels. That Mother Nature is like taking a deep breath. Oh my God, this is great. So how do we use that momentum? How do we allow that momentum to keep flowing in the direction that best serves us in our message of trying to at least if not do something about, at least inform people of the extremely critical problem of climate change, right? So, I mean, people are really up in arms around the pandemic, the coronavirus. They think, oh my God, here it comes, the end of the world, and millions of people are going to die. Well, maybe that's true. Maybe that's not. It looks like probably not millions of people are going to die, but, maybe over many years. The thing is that the death rate from just other things is much, much higher than coronavirus. And, 150,000 people die every day of other diseases, cancer, heart disease, driving in cars. Oh, the death rate from suicide in the United States is, what is it? It's like 16,000 a year or something like that. Or more than that. I'm sorry. I think I got that wrong. Anyways, I think the death rate from suicide in the United States is more than all the people who have died from coronavirus so far. So that's just suicide. But the thing is the death rate from climate change, from climate catastrophe, is going to be, if people are up in arms around, the death rate from coronavirus or the contagion rate from coronavirus, they should actually be very, very afraid of the death rate and contagion rate of climate change, of ecological collapse. Because what's the death rate for insects of ecological collapse? What's the death rate for vertebrates not that are non-human due to ecological collapse? It looks like the death rate over the last 20, 30, 40 years is something like 70 or 80%. It's huge. It's gigantic. What's the death rate in a year for insects and vertebrates, non-human vertebrates? Probably extremely gigantic. So, Richard Monroe, thank you for the comment. Yes, but degrowth needs to be front and center. Maybe people will learn to live more simply from CV-19. Indeed. This is a really good time to start trying to raise awareness. It's hard, though. I understand, because even before this situation, raising awareness around climate change was like, oh, my God, for many people trying to talk to, brick walls of disbelief or refusal to have the conversation. I know it all too well. Even people that totally understand and get it are like, yeah, it sounds pretty bad. Anyways, did you watch the Laker game? Rich Diana, real degrowth includes human population decrease. Yeah. Yeah. And, so we have 150 deaths a day globally, something like that. I don't know if we would call those natural or not, but, people die. That's what, what happens. People are born and people die. We have something like 350,000 people born every day. So what if we just took down, the amount of people born underneath the 150,000? Let's try that. Going south, 2019 was the second lowest on record for both sea ice volume and extent. Second lowest on record. What 2016 probably had the record, right? I'm assuming. Yeah, I'm assuming that 2020 won't be much different. Where are we going to be? First, second, or third? We're probably going to be in one of those slots. I'm just guessing. Doomhound CV numbers are underreported. Well, maybe they are. They might be. I wouldn't doubt that there's some difference in the number reporting. Who knows? All we can do is take the numbers at face value. Going south, CV deaths at 100,000 by next week. 100,000. Let's see. Hold on one second. Let's look at this. We have 33,000 deaths. We were at like 28. Was it yesterday or the day before? Will we reach 100,000 deaths in the next week? Possible. It's possible. We'll definitely reach 1 million cases worldwide. 100,000 deaths is very possible. We'll see where it goes, and we're going to have to keep an eye on what what the trend lines are looking like in other countries. Again, with their case totals and death totals, etc. Prud'homme, 360,000 babies born today. Yes, exactly. Anyways, I'm going to link that video that I was speaking about in the earlier part of this video. Just take a look at it. It kind of like puts things in a bit of perspective. Again, you have to just assume that the numbers are what they are. Prud'homme, biggest cause of death during high unemployment is heart attack, followed by alcoholism and related illnesses. Yes. Right. And, so that's something that many people aren't really concerned about is that when we have a blue ocean event, how that tips the planet into, possible unsustainable life supporting situation. No representation. I'm worried that we lose the ice at the end of the summer this year, the next year for the most of the summer. I mean, who knows? Who knows? We're going to lose the ice eventually, whether it's, could be anywhere between this summer and 5 or 6 summers out. Nobody really knows, but it's coming soon. And the idea that it's coming soon, or the knowledge, the certainty that it's coming soon, is the thing that should actually scare the shit out of people on a way grander scale than coronavirus. Not saying that coronavirus isn't bad, or isn't something to be worried about, or something to protect yourself from. But again, we should also protect ourselves from heart disease and cancer, and Poppy Davis says blue ocean event means down to 10% ice. I think. Maybe you're right. I think so. Something like that. It's a lot of ocean and a little bit of ice. Prud'homme says 250,000 to 600,000 flu deaths in an average year. There you go. So if you're looking at just comparatively, looking at the numbers, we may be seeing 100,000 deaths, corona deaths in a week. Yeah. Compared to how many flu deaths we see. And what was the number on, dang it, was it H1N1? Hold on. I'm going to look this up and then. I don't think it was. What was I looking at? The swine flu in 2009 may have killed up to 203,000 people worldwide. 10 times higher than the first estimates based on the number of cases confirmed by lab tests. So, that was a bit of a pandemic. Actually, it was called a pandemic. 200,000 and 3,000 deaths. That's a lot of deaths. Dang it. Oh, no. Shit. Sorry guys, my browser has frozen. My everything is frozen. Dang it. How do I get out of here? I don't even know. Okay, here we go. Got it. Woo! Little concern there for a second. I thought I was going to have to shut my computer off. So anyways, it's, perspective is a good thing. The alarmism is, possibly necessary on some level, but it also, is something that can be used as a tool to inflict damage or inflict control on the plebes. But not to say that we won't see, not to say that this isn't a bad thing, and not necessarily to say that this isn't a harbinger of things to come. Right? And, we could see obviously new and more frightening diseases come out of all kinds of places, come out of the permafrost, come out of, unknown viruses being, released into the world that will be, 5 times worse than coronavirus. So, this is something to take seriously and also to prepare for, possibly a worse version, a worse edition of this. Judy Truitt says, I live in a rural community. Sorry, guys. I don't know why my video is getting so crazy. Sorry about that. I live in a rural community of about 300 spread over a few square miles. We have an organic farm and everybody gardens. We are set. Awesome, Judy. Good to hear. Raza Remen, humanity will not have been in vain if someone way off in the future, someone can learn from our demise. Well, if there is someone, if there is actually anybody in the future. Forest Dweller, when the internet dies, we die. No. Say it ain't so. Well, our little corner of the universe will go away. That's true. No representation. COVID-19 not the worst virus on the planet, I assure you. Well, again, somebody was talking about, if you have Ebola, mixed with something far more contagious. Like Ebola is super deadly, but also not as it's harder to get. It's not as contagious as other things. So, if you mixed Ebola with something else that was super contagious, like the measles, then scary times ahead. All right, guys, I'm going to have to take off. Thank you so much. for joining me in this chat. And we will reconvene tomorrow again at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Thank you for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. And until next time, peace.